Hi, I'm Marty Demko. My clients, and I've had a lot of them, 6,000 actually over the last 35 years, ask me a lot of questions, and I thought I would share their most common questions and my typical answer. Of course, everybody's a little different, but this should be helpful to you. I'm going to talk about everything from choosing a career to landing a job to negotiating to getting off to a good start, self-employment, what if you want to change careers, what if personal stuff is interfering, family stuff, kid stuff. I think that's all I'm going to talk about. Let me see, is there anything else? I made a few notes. Retirement, age bias, time management, stress management. Okay, that's what I'm planning to cover. Rough sequential order, chronologically. So probably the most common question I'm asked is, what career should I pursue? They're not sure what they want to do. They've thought a lot about it, but nothing really stands out. Well, here are some of my best thoughts. It's very easy to be seduced by the advice, do what you love, the money will follow. Follow your passion. But unfortunately, it's easy to say because who could disagree with it in theory, and certainly the successful people who ended up on TV or are interviewed tend to have followed their passion and they did what they loved and the money followed. Unfortunately, for every person who succeeded that way, there are many more who are still metaphorically or literally waiting tables. So I normally like to suggest a more realistic model. And I want to say this, but also, the problem with following your passion and doing what you love is that many people want to do the same kind of things you love. Sports, entertainment, media, environment, stuff like that. And so there's huge supply, and so they get you to work for next to nothing or volunteer even. So I tend, all things being equal, to suggest a better model for my clients that are much more likely to lead to success. You want to choose a career that is at the intersection of your preferences, that is the things you're interested in, your what you like to do, and your abilities, and also what the market wants. So you may love to collect stamps and feel you're good at it, estimating the prices. But if the market is glutted and there's a million, for example, sellers on eBay, that's not going to work, almost certainly. Unless, there's certain people who just say, I don't care the risk. I'm going to be the one who's so driven, taking the stamp example, to create the ultimate niche in the stamp business and market it really well and source really well and price really well. If you're that driven, then you can change your level of concern about what the market wants and how easy it is to break into the market. But generally, you want to consider the intersection of your preferences, abilities, and the market. So taking that example, if somebody loves the idea of buying and selling something, but is afraid that stamps is not going to be postage stamps, collector stamps is unlikely to be viable in the market. You might say, okay, what is the market want to buy and sell? What is hot right now? Well, we're in an era where green is everything. So do you want to do business to business selling online, used wind turbines, or service? Do you want to broker service for servicing and installing wind turbines? So there's your way to integrate your skills, your interests, your preferences, your values, and the market. Now, what if you don't know what the hell to do? Nothing comes to mind. There really is a quite easy way to be able to search through hundreds of careers in minutes. One is the government puts out this book called the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which has one-page long descriptions, dry but authoritative, for about 300 very popular careers. You can simply scan the index of that. My book, Cool Careers for Dummies, provides a little shorter, a little more accessible introductions to 340 careers with a link for more information. So you could simply look at the index of Careers for Dummies, or the table the index of Careers for Dummies or the Occupational Outlook Handbook, and trust your gut feeling, because your gut feeling is going to integrate so much about your skills, your interests, your potential, your connections, everything. So use that at least as the initial tool for saying, okay, I want to learn more about this career, so maybe I'm going to look on LinkedIn and search on that and see what the job descriptions are for people who do that. Or I might just Google it and see, it might be, geologist, Google geologist careers or whatever, and do some reading. And I tend to trust that better than any individual friend, because your friend is an N of one. Whereas you do what I just said, you're going to get a much larger sample size, and therefore it's going to be more representative. It'll help you make a more valid choice. One more thing I want to say about choosing a career. Most of my clients would like a very specific career. So there's a clear path. You go and get this master's or the certificate or whatever, and here is who's hiring, and here's how you do it. But I find that often is not the wisest approach. But candidly, my clients don't buy what I'm about to say, most of them. And that is to find what I call the sweet spot between being open to anything, I'm desperate, and something highly specific, like I want to be an entomology researcher who specializes in why the butterflies are declining in population. But something more in the middle, where I like doing field research, perhaps something environmental, again, although that's a very crowded market, but perhaps in the insect sphere. That's in the middle, so that you're open to a wider range of possibilities. The odds of finding a career that will work for you, let's say in this butterfly thing, let's say you live in a certain area where there is no master's or doctoral program or certificate program or whatever regarding butterflies, you're kind of stuck. So I think it's normally wise, in terms of we're talking about what's going to ultimately result in you be happier, to have the middle ground, not just open to anything, not hyper-specific, but something in the middle. That said, one size doesn't fit all, and you may say, damn it, I want to be an expert at creating new dental gum cleaning things, and I want to be in sales and marketing of it, and I want to work for a company that's based in Los Angeles. Everybody's different, but I just wanted to share some thoughts. Okay, now let's turn to the next chronological question that my clients often ask me, of course, is what is the best strategy for landing a job? And of course, it's individual, but this is important. Most conventional advice on landing a job says you got to network. That's going to vary with the person. Look at your track record. Has your networking been effective, whether it be with your existing friends or at parties or professional conferences? To the extent to which it has been successful, yeah, you're going to want to do more of it. But if it's largely been a failure and you generally, leave your networking event with a sigh as you get back into your car and you are unhappy because it didn't lead to anything, that would tell you probably shouldn't do much networking, except maybe to your few very closest contacts. But rather, if you, for example, would be much better at either cold calling target employers, even without a connection. Yeah, that doesn't often work, and it's working less well every day. But if you're good at that, and you could leave great voicemail, that can, if you make 20 dials a day for a week, the odds are decent that if your pitch is good and the target is good, target the employer that's targeted, as well as you're being able to make the case for why you'd be good at it, or at least good for an internship or an entry-level job. If you make those 100 dials and you're good at it, that might work for you. Other people are just better at crafting. They will craft their LinkedIn profile and resume to include the right keywords that they find by looking at LinkedIn and seeing what kind of keywords are often used in job ads. They would make sure that they highlight their greatest strengths. They don't make it necessarily long, but they highlight the really good and important stuff. They have a carefully developed picture, designed picture, and it doesn't need to be taken by a professional. In fact, sometimes you're going to look more natural if you ever have a friend take it or do selfies. Just make sure there's not shadows on your face. So there are some people who do a better job just simply answering ads. They're assiduous and looking for on-target ads, and they may include in their application they're really good at putting a piece of collateral in. Maybe they're good writers, so they might write a one-pager on their approach to that particular career, or a 30-day plan, what you would do if you hired in your first 30 days, tentatively. That piece of collateral can make a difference. But no matter how you're searching for a job, I really like the model of what I call learn and change. As you try stuff, keep alert to what's working and what's not, and adjust as appropriate. The metaphor I like to use for this is if you are at San Francisco Harbor and you're in a boat, you have a boat and you want to get to Hawaii, you're only going to do a moderate amount of planning because you know the winds and the weather are going to change. Far better to go and do that moderate planning and then set sail, being very aware of what's working and what's not. Have you set your course right? Have the winds changed? Has the weather changed? Has the condition of your boat changed? Making changes along the way is much more likely to get you to Hawaii than spending too much time preparing in advance and then staying with the plan. Another little tip about what works in landing a job, it really isn't fun to look for a job. You face a lot of being ignored and rejection, and a lot of time spent that doesn't go anywhere. My clients have generally been more successful if they compress their job search into 2 weeks. They make all their inquiries within 2 weeks, so they get that out of the way, and then see what happens. And then, if you need to do another round, my successful clients do say, okay, my 20 best leads did not work. What did I learn from that? How could I find 10 or 20 more? Okay, that's what I want to say about landing a job. Now, another question my clients often ask is, how do you vet an employer so you're likely to be happy at that place of employment? Well, first of all, something I said earlier about choosing a career. If you're being interviewed for a job and you've got a friend or a colleague who works there, don't take that one person's opinion that seriously, because it's just one person. That person can be disgruntled or happy, biased, whatever. So certainly listen to if you've got a friend there. But a Google search, for example, on the term, the name of the organization, or maybe even the work group within the organization, and maybe critiques or reviews or opinions or hate or like, adding those words can instantly get you a broader set of opinions. And of course, there's a website that that you should certainly look at is Glassdoor. Especially for larger companies, Glassdoor has employee reviews anonymous about what it's really like to work there, and that can be helpful. Then, in the interview process, and usually these days there's 2, 3, 4 interviews, ask a few good questions. And a few examples are, you're not just sitting there, by the way, being interrogated. It's more of a first date where you're trying to see if there's a fit. So questions I like to ask is, every boss is different. If you were to hire me, what do you envision the way in which you would manage me? So they're not going to say they're assholes, but they might say, I tend to want to, in the beginning, see a lot of detail, or, no, I expect you to hit the ground running, or whatever. You'll learn something about whether that's going to be a good fit for you. You might ask, why did the previous person leave the job? What would you hope I'd accomplish in the first 30 days? You can't ask too many of those questions, you're going to seem high maintenance. But if you ask a few of those questions, that's going to be more data points to help you decide if you're likely to be happy there. Then when you're offered the job, if at all possible, visit the workplace. Do the people generally seem happy or at least contented, yet busy? Or are they frazzled or bored? Is their desk too neat? Then hang out in the break room a little bit. And if you see somebody who looks approachable, you might say, hey, I've just been offered a job here. Is there anything I should know about it that might not appear in the employee handbook that might help me decide if I should take it or not? You may not, they're not going to bear all their dirty laundry, but you may get some information. So the collective, all of that is going to increase your chances of being happier on the job than the average person. Okay, so that's that question. How do I vet an employer so I'm likely to be happy? I'm going to take a little break so my announcer can do a thing. Then I'm going to talk about negotiating compensation, getting off to a good start, dealing with stress, dealing with time management. What if your family is causing problems that make it difficult for you to do a job, self-employment, career change, if you're older, and looking toward retirement. Only be a few seconds. I hope you'll stay with me. Okay, thank you for staying with me. As promised, the next topic I want to talk about is a question that I often get asked. My next client is, after I finish this, is going to be about this very thing. How should I negotiate my compensation? First of all, the negotiation is generally won or lost in preparation. So make a list of all if you're, let's just say for now, instead of a new employee, you're a current employee, and it's time for your salary review. Review what you've done since your last salary review that has added value either to the organization or to your boss specifically. And it could be There could be dollar advantages, which sometimes are easy to measure. I saved the company this amount of money with this process. I closed these amount of deals, whatever. But there's also non-cash contributions. Have you contributed to esprit de corps? Did you do some voluntary things that really helped make the workplace better? List all of those. Then project forward and do the same thing for the 6 months ahead. What do you picture accomplishing and doing that would benefit your boss, benefit the organization, both financially and in other non-financial ways? Turn that into a list of bullets. Send that to your boss in advance. Say, I look forward to having our conversation about compensation, and I thought you might find this bulleted list of past and anticipated future accomplishments useful as we discuss it. That way you're not dropping it on his or her head on the spot, gives that person a chance to think, also gives the person cover. So if he's going to give you or she's going to give you a bigger raise than is normal, there is good ammunition that you have left for that boss to use when he or she is talking to the boss, to their boss. Okay. I want to stress, by the way, when actually in the negotiation itself, focus less on the salary. It's very obvious and very clear, and it's a sign of prestige, but the additional money you get on top of what was offered is going to be taxed at your highest rate. And that's federal income tax, state income tax, unemployment insurance, Medicare, Social Security, everything. So you're going to keep probably less than half of what you negotiate, and yet the employer gets nothing, no benefit from that. So don't argue hard about cash. Make your one pitch. Maybe, they're offering you a 8% raise, and you say, in light of all this stuff, doesn't 15% seem fairer? I like those wordings, by the way. Doesn't 15% seem fairer? I like that approach. And it's not an ultimatum, it's appealing to fairness. But non-cash benefits can be of enormous benefit to the employer as well as to you, and things like a training budget. Maybe you want to go to Hawaii to hone your skills at that conference. Maybe they'll pay for that, and that's not taxable, and you'd love it. Maybe maybe you want a title because that could help you in moving up in your current job or in future jobs. That doesn't cost them anything. Maybe you want to change your job description. This is very helpful. To say, this is what I really like doing, and I really don't like doing this very much. The organization would benefit a lot, and so would I, if we could rejigger my job description so that I spend more time doing X and less time or no time doing Y. That is a great thing to negotiate. Note it's non-taxable and can greatly improve your success and happiness. Do be careful, by the way. Sometimes the amount of contribution to the health plan or retirement plan is negotiable. Sometimes it's fixed. But again, that can be tax deferred or non-taxable. That's not a bad thing to negotiate. But be careful before you negotiate stock, especially if you've got stars in your eyes and it's a startup or an early stage company and they're giving you shares. Most of those end up being worth nothing. And even if it's a public company, the stock has to go up. And that means the company has to do well generally, and the market overall has to do well. So you could be negotiating hard for more stock options and get nothing for it. So don't make that usually a high priority unless you're really bullish on the company, period. And the final little tip, and again, it's just a rule of thumb, you don't always do this. I generally like the idea of rejecting the first offer, the first package, but accepting the second. Because usually anything more you get after that second offer is small, especially after tax, relative to the increased expectations that it likely will be for you. Or they may even say, you know what, you're too expensive, I'm going to let you go. So I generally am a fan of politely rejecting the first offer and maybe making a counteroffer, or maybe letting them make the counteroffer, but then accepting the second one. Okay, so that's a question a lot of my clients ask: how should I negotiate my compensation? Okay, another question I'm often asked is, how do I get off to a good start on the job? First, let's start with the basic. Dressing. You want to dress roughly equal to your peers in that organization. If it's a collared shirt, no tie, no jacket, make that your norm. Maybe one step above, a casual sport jacket or a sweater, or maybe a tie that's open but no jacket. Something that's either equal to or one notch above what the norm is for people in your careers. show if you do the notch above, you seem like you're taking the job a little more seriously, and shallow as humankind is, it may make you be perceived a little better. But don't if everybody's in t-shirts, don't come in a sport jacket and tie. Critically, getting off to a good start, the most important thing for sure, in my judgment, is to see if you want to renegotiate the job description again, as I mentioned a moment ago, to accentuate your strengths and skirt your weaknesses. Really look hard at what you're expected to do. And if it's unclear, certainly one of the first things you should do is meet with your boss. Now, you should have done this probably when you were first offered the job. But let's say you were already hired, and it's your job description and your reputation, how you're perceived, is what I call your feet are in wet cement. You stay doing what you're assigned, etc., that cement's going to harden. And the best example I have to give is my daughter. My daughter got an internship in Hillary Clinton's office when Bill Clinton was the president. And what they told her to do was answer letters to Socks the cat. Well, that's pretty dead end, low level, not going to learn a lot. The Clintons had a cat called Socks, obviously. So my daughter called me after her first day. I said, how did it go? She tells me about the Socks the cat thing. And I say to her, if you just do that, you're going to be forgotten. You're going to be one of a million interns, not like Monica Lewinsky or sleeping with Bill Clinton, but you'll be just another intern who's going to come and go. At your first opportunity, meet with your boss. Her boss was Evelyn Lieberman, who was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, and politely say something like, Evelyn, I understand that I may well have to pay my dues, but I thought I'd let you know I'm a pretty good writer and researcher, so if by any chance there's an opportunity for me to do some writing or research on Hillary's behalf, I'd be honored to do it. Well, sometime later, I don't remember if it was a week or 3 weeks later, Evelyn comes over to her and says, Hillary's researcher is going on maternity leave. Would you like to try out to be her researcher? Well, of course, my daughter was thrilled, and the next day, Hillary was to meet with the Sultan of Oman. And Hillary, like most people, didn't know much about the Sultan of Oman. So Amy, my daughter, researched her ass off to learn about the Sultan of Oman, but rather than overwhelm Hillary, my daughter had the perspective of reducing it to one or two pages, so there was something that Hillary could read in a couple of minutes in preparation for the meeting. Well, that worked out so well that afterwards, my daughter became Hillary's research assistant. So my point is, when you're first hired, your job description is in wet cement, but it hardens quickly. If you're not happy with the job description, if you think you could do more for the organization and for yourself, and for your boss specifically, that's the time to politely ask. That's key to getting off to a great start. Now also, usually you want to try to learn, not try to show how great you are immediately, but do a lot of listening, but try to get some small wins that are visible. For example, my favorite example of this is, if you're asked to write something, or you could write some little report or whatever, send a draft of the report to the people who would be attending the upcoming meeting and to your boss and say, hey, I just thought I'd send you this draft for review. What do you think? That's a way of getting credit for what you do. It's a low-key, defensible way to be visible. And that's what I want to say about getting off to a good start in the job. Now, of course, one of the most common things that, especially successful, I wouldn't say that. Most common things that people complain about is being stressed out, and I get asked about that all the time. So, there are usually a couple of major causes, and it's helpful to figure out what the cause is. It's usually the work is too hard, or you lack control. You're told that you're micromanaged, you have no discretion, and that's stressing. So if it's too hard, again, should you be getting help more often? Should you be self-studying so the work is less easier? Should you trade work with somebody? Ask for a coworker's help. Should you ask them to do part of it for you, and you'll do something that's easy for you in exchange? Should you talk to your boss about wanting more autonomy if lack of control is the problem? If it's too hard, perhaps the best thing to do is to be candid and say, I don't think I'm quite able to do this kind of software engineering. Is there some easier work you could give me? I know that's hard, but it may be the best in the long run. Sometimes people's stress have nothing to do with work, but their personal issues seep into their work life. and this is much easier said than done, but when you're worrying about something, ask yourself, can I do anything to fix or improve this now? And if not, then distract yourself. Distract yourself by making yourself focus on your work, on taking a break and chatting with friends in the break room. If you're working remotely, as so many of us are, take a break to pet the dog, clean the toilet, whatever. So fix or distract is a good way to reduce stress. Another thing that my clients haven't found helpful, I would have thought was more helpful, but I think is central, is to have perspective. If you're stressed out, maybe, and I take my work very seriously, I think you can tell just in the way I'm doing this, but not so seriously. Have some perspective. For example, as I'm doing this, first of all, I didn't script anything. I just made a list of the points I'd like to generally make, and then I'm just talking with you. And my sense of perspective is I'm doing the best I can, but if you don't like it, I won't lose sleep over it. I'm not stressed out. I'm just doing my best and letting it go. So that approach, do your best and let it go because you can't control what's out of your control, is a way to reduce stress. Now those are ways to improve the core cause of your stress. But there are symptomatic approaches that are usually good adjuncts or even substitutes. You can I take a lot of micro breaks, and I recommend that to my clients all the time. It could be somebody taking one deep breath. It could be standing up and stretching. It could be, as I said, petting your dog. It could be cleaning the toilet. It could be taking a walk down the hall, getting coffee, taking a walk outside if the weather is decent and just walk around the block. Walk down the stairs and walk up the stairs. A little bit of exercise is de-stressing. Micro breaks. Don't waste a lot of time so that you're more stressed because you're falling behind, but taking lots of micro breaks. In a day, I probably take 15 of them. It's helpful in reducing stress, and yet it doesn't in toto take much time. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes, if your job is unalterably boring or hard or whatever, having a compelling avocation, something you love to do, whether it be a creative thing, whether it be being in a play or music or writing or painting or sport. You just love playing community basketball or whatever it is. Knowing that's ahead at the end of the day can be a way to reduce stress. Now, a word about vacations. Paradoxically, they can often increase your stress because it takes usually days to prepare, to make sure you got everything done. And that's at work, and then at home you got to get the plant water or dog sitter, take the dog, whatever, get the tickets, pack, make sure you got everything ready, and you go, and then there's the traffic of the getting to the airport, and then the parking, and then the delays, and the TSA, and COVID risks, and it's endless, and you get these few days of pleasure, but then you come back and you've got to go through it all again, and then you get back to work, and there's usually a bunch of stuff piled up. So I am not a big fan of vacations as a way to reduce stress. I'm a much bigger fan of the things I just mentioned. Figuring out if you can make that work that's too hard easier. See if you can get more control over your work. See if you've got a problem from outside of work that's seeping into your work life. See if you can is there anything you can do to fix or improve it, or then just distract yourself. Having perspective that is doing your best, but not necessarily, you can't usually control the outcome. Let go. Take a lot of micro breaks, maybe have a compelling avocation, and beware of vacations as you think of it as an antidote to stress. Next, I should take another little break here, I guess. When I come back, I'm going to be talking about time management, and then what if your family, spouse, or kids are very demanding and getting in the way of you doing a good job at work. We'll talk about how to deal with that. These are questions my clients are asking me. Then advice on self-employment, what about career, how to make career change or increase the chances of it working, dealing with age bias, and heading toward retirement. Okay, stay with me just a moment. I hope you do, and I'll be with you in just a moment. Okay, thanks for staying with me. Time management, another thing that's something certainly clients ask me a lot about. There are many different reasons why people don't manage time well. Some people, they just lose track of time. They're just not that focused. It may help to keep a log of how you're spending your time for one day, and then you'll see, or even do a little exercise where you take a little timer and you guess how long a minute is, and see how accurate you are. And little by little, you get better at it, and that can help you have a better sense of that. That's one cause of poor time management. Another is just a tendency to procrastinate, which is the most common. There's something else I want to say. Sometimes people do things, either they're too perfectionistic or they're too slipshod and they make lots of mistakes they have to cover up and spend more time doing. So make sure you're exerting the right level of perfection for the given task. But procrastination is a huge problem for many of my unsuccessful clients. They certainly, when they came to me, just a couple of things that are worth mentioning. It usually helps to keep in mind either one internal or one external motivator. Internal is realizing that your value on this earth and your self-esteem is in part at least a function of how productive you are. That can help some people, not others. Others can be motivated by either a positive incentive, they really want to get a promotion, or they want their wife's praise. For other people, it's the external thing is it could be negative, fear of getting let go or demoted or being embarrassed. So find your core motivator, reduce it to one word or one phrase, and try to keep that in mind, repeat it, maybe even put it as a post-it on the side of your computer monitor to keep you going. You might also, if you're not sure you're managing your time well, again, try to log for one day. Every 15 minutes, set your iPhone or whatever your timer to go off every 15 minutes and write down what you were doing at that time. At the end of the day, look at how you spent your time and ask yourself, are you managing time as well as you could? Should you be getting, should you be getting more help with things? Again, should you be adjusting your what your tasks are, if possible, to enable you to spend your time doing what you can do expeditiously. And the final little tip I want to offer, two little tips, is the 1 second start. Many people find the hardest part are getting started and when you get stuck in the middle. In the beginning, it may help to just say, okay, I'm just going to I'm going to start with my first 1 second thing, whether it's to turn on the computer, open a book, write the first word, the first item for an outline. Start with a 1 second or a few second little start. And then when you reach the hard part, you might want to use what I call the 1 minute struggle. Usually you're going to make progress within 1 minute of starting the struggle. And if not, at that minute mark, ask yourself, should you get help? Could you do the task without that hard part? Should you come back to it later? Knowing that you've got that 1 minute struggle technique can help you not fear the task so much. It can reduce the amount of frustration. Okay, I have a number of clients who have asked me, what should I do if my spouse or my kid are demanding and they're getting in the way of my doing a decent job at work? What has been most successful for my clients is we take it a bite at a time. We don't generally say my wife's a pain in the ass or my son is impossible. You take a specific incident. If it's the kid with homework or it's the wife refusing to make money, contribute to the family income, take that one issue and be statesmanlike about it and have a quiet conversation where the two of you hopefully can get more on the same page. And that is not easy to do, but good listening to each other, good statesmanlike compromise if needed, or giving in or realizing you were wrong. That is often a really helpful tool. And then when you've got that first problem at least somewhat resolved, then you can turn to another one. How do you eat an elephant? Bite at a time. So take very specific examples of painful things that are impeding your effectiveness at work and have a statesman-like conversation with your spouse and or your kid. And if it's with your kid and you are a two-parent family, it's pretty important for you and your partner to get on the same page so that when you meet with the kid can't play one against the other and you've created a united front. A word about kids, about dealing with kids. Couple of points. One is if, let's say, the kid is used to you being too laissez-faire and letting the kid get away, you need to get a reset. If you realize you need to set more boundaries for the kid needs to know this is a new regime. And I'll just an example of kind of wording you might want to use. Sarah, I love you and I like giving you as much freedom as I can, but I think you're taking advantage of it a lot. And so starting now, Mom and I are going to be firmer. We're not going to be mean, but we're going to be really clear about expectations, and if you don't meet them, we're going to be disappointed. Notice I didn't say I'm going to hit you or I'm going to ground you. You want to build more emotional, intrinsic motivation. So I'd say I'd be really disappointed, and I don't want to punish you and send you to your room or whatever, but I know you want to be a big girl, and so we're not going to be arbitrary. We're not going to just make silly rules. That's what I'd say if I was talking to a younger kid. but we're going to be firmer about our expectations and try to be reasonable. If you think we're not being reasonable, we want to be good listeners as well, and we can work it out as a family. That kind of conversation can be a useful reset. And ultimately, remember I said earlier in the work context, you can't control everything. In the end, the kid's going to do what he wants to do. They can almost always sneak, especially after they're 6 or 7. They can hang out with the bad kids during recess. They can do drugs as a teenager and you not know about it. They can sneak away and they're at college. You want to build intrinsic motivation, getting the kid to make wise choices because they've chosen it, not because they're afraid of your punishment. Certainly a lot of my clients ask about self-employment. It is much harder than, again, the media will have you believe. They only bring people on the shows who are successful. It is very difficult, especially today. There's ever more regulations, ever more paperwork, ever more employer mandates that you have to provide for your employees, ever more safety rules. It is huge. So if you want to be legal, it is not at all easy to be self-employed. That said, many people, certainly the people who come to me are not usually born entrepreneurs. They don't tend to come to me. They're already doing it. But if you're not a born entrepreneur, it's particularly tough. My best advice, and it was worked mainly for my clients like that, is to choose an ultra-simple business. One that doesn't cost much money to make, one that isn't very complex where it's too much to go wrong, one that doesn't require a lot of money because money is your lifeblood, and if you run out, you're dead. So, and you also, I love the idea of a business where you're not competing with the best and brightest. So when my clients get excited about doing something in the environment or biotech, or being a sports agent, I get nervous, unless they're really quite a star, because you're competing with superstars. That's not what you want to do. Your chances of succeeding are limited. If you recognize that status is the enemy of contentment, I encourage you to consider low-status businesses because the people you're going to be competing with, your competitors, are not going to be as sharp or as driven. I do remember going to a Christmas party maybe a decade ago, and I was talking to a guy about 40, and I asked him what he did for a living. And he said, I'm retired. Retired at 40? Why, what did you do? He ran a small chain of hot dog carts called Frank's for the Memories. And no status. But because he was a smart guy and driven and smart and focused and all the rest of it, he was able to make serious money just, running hot dog carts because his competition just wasn't that great. I think I remember he had one in a couple or one or more in the financial district a long time ago. I don't remember. But anyway, there's a good example of something simple. Now, I don't like food because, again, the government regulations are onerous typically. But I like the idea of the gift card. You're not paying rent. I like the idea of going to the managers of major big office buildings, and they often have big lobbies that are not generating any rent, and say, how would you like to make some money and please your customers? I will have a gift card, put a gift card in this corner of the lobby, and I will pay you X dollars, and I will sell to the people of your business. Now, the rent's going to be a lot cheaper. The cart costs very little. You can vary what the inventory is in the cart. It could be whatever the local sports team is winning, you could carry those T-shirts and caps and whatever. If it's rainy season, you could be carrying umbrellas. If it's snowy season, you could have scarves and whatever. You get the point. Valentine's Day, things for Valentine's Day presents. Mother's Day, things are more important for Mother's Day. You get the point. Christmas, certain gift items. Soap, gift baskets of soap. Those don't have shelf life problems. So if they don't work this year, you can stick them in your garage and sell them again next year. So low status businesses, cleverly implemented to keep your expenses down, is my general best advice around self-employment. Now, what if you want to make career change? Again, I like to be as honest as I can be. It's much harder than people would have you believe. And when you think about it, you're going to take no income as you take time to train, or even if you don't do that, you're going to go to employers and say, hey, you should hire me, a newbie who's not so young, who's already making decent money, and even though I have no experience. That's not that even if you stress your transferable skills, it's very similar what I did in my previous career, that's a hard sell when they can place an ad on Indeed and get hundreds of applicants, or hire their relative. If they want to hire somebody with no experience, they're going to hire their relative. So it is not easy. And especially if you decide you're going to get formal training, you go back for a certificate or a degree, not only is there the foregone income, or if you're doing it at night, you're doing it when you're exhausted, there's of course the cost of the tuition. Really, you need to look hard at estimating if the degree of your likely increased happiness and success, are you that much more likely to be happy and success to justify the costs, the stress, because often your unhappiness tends to travel with you to the next job. Your causes. It could be, let's say you are not a quick learner, or maybe you are high maintenance, or maybe you have emotional issues, or your family really is more important to you and you're going to shortchange their work. Ask yourself, how likely are you going to be happier in the new job? Will your issues travel with you to the new job? Okay, next question. Age bias. How do you deal with age bias looking for a job? First of all, it really helps if you can to pick a field or a job in which your age is a plus. Generally, jobs or fields or careers in which the customer base is older will be better for older people looking for a job. So, and it's not just obviously, durable medical supplies, wheelchairs and the like, or insurance, which is aimed at older people, but things like architecture services, being in architectural marketing. I'm not saying if you're older, you're going to go back to architecture school, but architectural marketers, the people who can afford architects, usually are older. So that's the kind of thing that you might want to do. Or even things that are, that are age neutral but are not cutting edge, that don't tend to attract a young market, like consumer staples, supermarkets, Procter and Gamble, bedding companies. Older people tend to have trouble sleeping, so they tend to figure a new bed might help. Look for something in which your age would be a plus. And then, no matter what, age has its minuses and has its pluses. Minuses, you're probably less likely to take a lot of bullshit promises from employers, especially if they're 25 years old. You may not have the energy, you may not be technologically as up to speed, whatever. But there are pluses. Your experience does usually matter, and you want to tout how your experiences would be relevant in helping to prevent and or solve problems that maybe somebody with less experience couldn't have. And if you are in good shape, you want to stress that. For example, even in your resume on LinkedIn, talk about if you like hiking, say it, so it doesn't seem like you're just one step from the wheelchair. Tout that you also have more perspective. When you're older, you don't get rattled so quickly. You've seen a lot, and therefore you're able to keep an even keel. So finding, if possible, employers or products where your age would be a plus, and then tout the pluses of your age. And finally, looking toward retirement. I have a number of clients who are in their 50s, 60s, even a little older, who are headed to or into retirement, and they want advice. So my favorite, perhaps non-obvious tip is, certainly everybody thinks about, okay, in retirement I'm going to spend time with the grandkids, I'm going to travel, I'm going to linger over coffee. Those tend to get old quickly. And so, play golf. Be not only vigilant to the big things, like writing your memoir, for example, which many people find very useful, or consult, like the Service Corps for the retired executives uses volunteers to mentor young people. Great idea. And then another big example, my friend Bob Schoen, when he retired, he's an optometrist, he walked cross country and kept a blog and kept reporting it, and he continues to write about it. So in addition to the big things, though, there's a million little opportunities to do things. Like deciding that you're going to, I'm going to, fall crops, I'm going to plant broccoli or whatever, or garlic. Or, I'm going to take the time to write a handwritten thank you note to the Trader Joe's clerk who was great. Or just constantly looking for little things that you would otherwise not have the time to do. And that can fill your day with really interesting, different things all the time, instead of same old, same old. So that's my best advice about retirement. Of course, one more thing, I guess. It's normally wise to do a glide path to retirement rather than, just shut it off. Slow down. See if you can reduce your work from 5 days to 4 to 3. Prepare your replacement if that's possible for you. Even just simply document, even if you're not going to replace your, plan, be involved in training your replacement, create a few pager document, lessons I've learned from my X years doing whatever your career is. All those things can be very, very helpful. All right, so those are my some answers to questions that my career coaching clients commonly ask me. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. Also, you might want to take a look at my new book on Amazon called Jeremy's Quests, subtitled Succeeding and Starting Out. It's on Amazon, and I'm proud of it, of course. And it's really slim. I'm finding that people are not going to read fat tomes anymore. I've written fat tomes, but this is not one. And it's illustrated, and it's a story of a young man starting out, so it's very more palatable than if I'm just listing to-dos. Anyway, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.